Hi there, folks. Andrea Cox here with thehealthyhaven.net and alkalizewithandrea.com. Soon to be andreacox.com, so definitely sign up for my newsletter at thehealthyhaven.net and I'll let you know when that's finished. I'm excited. I am even more excited, yay, that I have my favorite person here. That was professional, wasn't it? I have got Ronnie Landis here, and if you guys don't know who Ronnie is, to me, Ronnie is an herbalist. That's just whenever, I think of like hormones or men's issues or anything like that, I always think of Ronnie because he just really knows his stuff. So introduce yourself, tell everyone your website and who you are.
Yeah, thank you. Aloha, everyone. I just came to Encinitas fresh from Kauai, so I still have the aloha vibe going on. I'm Ronnie Landis, nutritionist, transformation coach, herbalist, every kind of thing you can imagine. I guess there's so many titles and labels, right? But I think of myself as a nutrition specialist and a transformation coach. Nice. And my website is ronnie-landis.com. And then I also have another website called holistichealthmastery.com.
Awesome, and excuse the, sounds like a garbage truck there, but hey, that's life. So it's really hot here. We've got the fan blowing, so we just want to preface that it's really hot. We've got Lewis on standby. I thought I would have Ronnie come on to talk about something that I think is really relevant in today's world, especially with all the estrogenous, hormones from cleaning chemicals and things of that nature. And that is about the adrenal glands, but not just the adrenal glands. It was a video of Ronnie's, and you'll want to check this video out on Ronnie's YouTube channel, that I saw about a week ago, and it was about, do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, the sympathetic overload video. I think.
The sympathetic overload, which has to do with the nervous system, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I found that video fascinating. I made 2 people in my life watch it, and I don't watch anybody's videos, so if I'm watching his videos, he's got it going on. So why don't you just kind of touch on that and what you talked about in that video, and then go into the adrenals.
Thank you for bringing that up, because when we think of the adrenals, we often think of like adrenal exhaustion or just being tired and wiped out. That's kind of a cultural epidemic, right?
Yeah.
People they're tired, they're fatigued, they're unfulfilled, and all these other things. So we tend to think of that just as an adrenal issue. And just for everyone listening, your adrenals are like these battery packs that are attached to your kidneys. So they're like your battery pack, right? So if you feel wiped out or just exhausted, then that means your batteries are running on empty. So that's an easy way to think of it. But then there's other areas that have to be looked at. So the way to simplify it, based on what you saw in that video, was this term called sympathetic overload. And this basically means that your sympathetic nervous system, which is essentially like your fight or flight, we all hear about cortisol stimulation. Without getting into too much of the complexities, that is based on your adrenal health. Your adrenals produce your adrenaline, they produce your cortisol. And we need cortisol actually at a certain range, at a certain part of our day. In the morning when you go to work out in the gym, that's when you want your cortisol to be high. And so you want to be able to utilize it or to mobilize your cortisol in the early part of your day, because then it moves. But if you don't use it, but if you're stressed out and you
then
have these issues,
it comes up at night and
exactly,
keeps you up and things like
that. It stays in your body and it doesn't get used. So these hormones and these energies, if you will, they want to be utilized. So one of the things I think I was saying in that video is that as a Western culture, we have an epidemic of sympathetic overload where people are just stressed and just don't really know why. They're just running on that exhausted energy, and then they're basically wired and tired. So the coffee tired combo, and people don't know what to do about it. So then the counterbalance of that is your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of your nervous system which it's like bringing you into equilibrium and balance. So that's relaxation, that's calm. And for example, if people are very easily triggered, they're very reactive, then the parasympathetic would be responsive opposed to reactive.
He likes Ronnie. What can I
say? Yeah.
Finally. And he smells not too good. So Ronnie's being very generous right now. All of my YouTube people love Lewis. They ask about Lewis. So I have a question. I'm sorry.
No, great.
I got a little scared. Ronnie's, been bit by Lewis. So the question I have is this. I'm going to laugh over my dog. What other, you mentioned there were other items as well that play into this. There were other hormones. What are those?
Well, the thyroid, for one.
Okay.
So one of the things I've been sharing a lot in my work is that a lot of people think that when they're wiped out, they have an adrenal issue, that it's only an adrenal issue, but there's a thyroid-adrenal feedback or communication loop. So actually, a lot of times when people have thyroid issues or they think they have a thyroid issue, a lot of times it's because they actually have an underlying adrenal issue and it's burning out the metabolic rate of your thyroid.
What he's saying is very on point. Now, I don't want to make this about me, but I actually went through adrenal burnout in my 20s, my early 20s. I was taking a lot of diet pills to stay slim. I had even played with something else that was a stimulant drug, and for a short period of time. And I went through an adrenal burnout, and I will tell you what happened to me. I could not get out of bed in the morning, but at night when it was time to go to bed, I was wound up. It was a very, and I would go off at the drop of a hat. And when I say go off, I mean lose my cool. Like that, lose my cool. I'm having to move and aren't even really losing my cool. I'm like, oh, I gotta move. Right. So to put it in perspective, that is adrenal burnout. People handle it differently. Tell me some of the symptoms of adrenal burnout.
Ooh, yeah, you just made me think of something. As soon as you said people handle it differently, I thought of two different extremes. There's the docile part, where you'll see this a lot in men more, especially with the domestication or the docility of the male right now. A lot of times we call that estrogen dominance, like a feminization of men.
I'm glad you said that because I know a lot of people were wondering. So what he means is when men are estrogen dominant, they tend to maybe cry a little bit more, right?
Yeah, and it's not just if a man's crying or he's showing vulnerability. It's more if a man is in his weaker state. Say a man is complaining without trying to create a solution. A man is worrying, overly concerned, especially about material, like money as a form of self-worth or survival issues, right? Things of that nature, because men produce testosterone when they are solution-orientated. So entrepreneurs, very successful entrepreneurs, they've done studies to correlate that the most successful male entrepreneurs have high testosterone. I always found that interesting when I first, maybe 5 years, started studying hormones more in-depthly, because I figured it wasn't just because of the xenoestrogen chemicals. That's a humongous part of the picture, but just looking at the characteristics, how does this affect our personality? Those kind of things. So from a male perspective, it goes in one of two extremes. I'm sure females can relate to this too. You're either very docile, where you're basically passive, even passive-aggressive, where you're not really reactive in the sense of triggered or getting agitated, but you kind of pent up inside until one moment it just unloads. Okay.
I want to say one thing right here that Ronnie said. You notice how he's very good at dealing with men's issues. I noticed
I've had a lot of them.
But I noticed that about Ronnie 2 years ago when I was watching his stuff. I'm like, this guy would be great. So I don't address in my videos a lot issues with men. I never have. I usually focus on the women. But I know there's a lot of you guys that follow me out there. So definitely hop on over to Ronnie's YouTube channel, which is...
It's Ronnie Landis.
Yeah, just Ronnie Landis. So mine's Andrea Cox TV. His is just Ronnie Landis. And hit the subscribe button because he's got a lot of knowledge to share.
Yeah.
And you do coach guys, right?
I coach everyone.
You coach everyone. Okay.
Yeah. And with breakthrough, I'll either do the typical like consultation, which will be like a one-off or 1 or 2 or 3 sessions that are like health and lifestyle based consultations, or I'm starting to do what I call breakthrough transformational coaching sessions, which are like 3-month to 6-month packages where like I'm really focused on helping people experience what a breakthrough feels like. And then beyond that, transcending our obstacles that we basically create for ourselves.
I love that. And I have, seen some of the transformations that Ronnie's done with men that I know personally, and they're amazing. So I want to get back to one thing he said, though, which was about the thyroid. So many of you ladies, you message me and you've got a hair issue, and my hair's, I think I have alopecia. I can't, alopecia, I can't grow my hair. How do you get your hair to grow? So, the first thing that doctors want to do, and doctors, they're great people. I've dated one. But the first thing that didn't work out. The first thing that doctors want to do is they want to put you on something like Synthroid or even Armor. Armor's from a thymus of a pig. Synthroid. Yes. One of the side effects of Synthroid, don't take my word for it. Check out the internet. It'll tell you this, is a major swelling of the face. And it doesn't really go away that easy. People who have stopped it for years. Now, I'm not telling you, of course you want to check with your doctor, and we're just talking, between the two of us here. But I personally wouldn't take that. I had that handed to me years ago, and once I got my diet in check and my supplementation in check, everything healed itself. But one thing I do want to say about what Ronnie's saying is, be sure before you spend all this money on supplements that you can absorb it. Be sure the gut is cleared out, right? How much does gut play a role?
It's actually, the more and more I study like microbiome research, which is your biological garden. That's what your microbiome is. That's what when we hear of like beneficial flora or beneficial bacteria, it's basically the main environment that I like to call your biological garden. One thing
I love that. Gonna steal that.
Yeah. It's
biological garden. Heard it from him.
And first. If you think of a garden, you think of life.
Yeah.
So you need to nurture and fertilize the soil, right? It's actually living, right? One of the things I think you'll find this interesting is there's also another term called the estrobolone, which is a subset of your microbiome, where it's basically your bacteria, or the colony of bacteria influences your estrogen. So they figured out that your hormones are actually being tweaked, or the communication of your hormones are being tweaked based on your microbiome.
So that's why, folks, sorry, I keep making that lighter. That's why one of the first things when a woman tells me I'm going through some hormone issues, or a man, I say, are you taking a probiotic? Because you want to make sure you're populating your gut with good flora. We all have bad flora, good flora. Make sure you're taking prebiotics, probiotics. I sell one. I'm sure Ronnie has one he recommends too. I'm going to load Ronnie with my products, by the way, to see what he thinks.
And by the way, some of your products, I was checking them out since I've been here, and incredible formulations actually. Especially what I love the I like the prebiotic focus and the probiotic combination. I think that's critical. But the one thing that caught my eye was I don't know if it was your beauty product, but it had like a lot of earth compounds like fulvic acid, humic acid, different clays.
It's the base in all my products. Even my probiotic is clay, and we get the clay from Oregon. And to me, it's the best clay out there, and I've had it all.
And that's another piece of this puzzle, by the way, is clay. Have you heard of the term geophagy? I have. Okay, so that's the scientific basis of indigenous clay eating, especially women. So it's something just to validate what you're doing even further, and for everyone listening to connect the dots of what we're talking about.
I know exactly what he's going to say.
Yeah. It's basically like, especially they first found this out in animals. Like if they study animals, I've talked about this a lot, where if an animal overeats a certain plant that has a lot of alkaloids, a lot of like bitter medicinal properties, they can overtax their liver, so then they naturally will start digging up clay to detoxify those compounds. They also found with Aboriginal women, when they get pregnant, especially intuitively, they go and crave clay.
I learned this very young when I had a girlfriend when I was in my early 20s that was pregnant, that was literally
because they start eating
digging
chalk and
up
stuff,
the garden at my apartment.
Oh, wow.
I had a grow box where you just grew in a grow box outside of my window in my apartment, like on my balcony. She was literally trying to eat the dirt. She was pregnant. So I knew that was the first time when I was like 20 that I made the connection. I was like, there is something to that. There's got to be full of minerals. So clay is full of minerals, and humic and fulvic acid also help detoxify the body in several ways.
By the way, that humic and fulvic acid is a base for the soil matrix. So if you get into like a biodynamic farming or any kind of conscious farming, you'll start to realize that those are critical for the soil bacteria diversity. And again, your biological garden, it's literally the inner world reflects the outer world. And
he's right. I don't have a garden at this house, but my man Panion's house in Mexico, when we tilled the garden, when Oliver, our housemate, tilled the garden for us, we just dumped my products in there and mixed it with the soil. I was like, I don't know how good the soil is. We're on the ocean. And so we dumped the products. But, I want to touch base for you guys out there. We're going to do a quick video on like the top 5 tips for males out there that are feeling a little bit off. So definitely check that out. It'll be on both our YouTube channels. If you could give people out there just 3 tips, if they're not, women and men.
Okay.
3 tips that work in a generalization way. I know men and women are very different.
I think it just downloaded to me.
Yeah, but if you could give everyone 3 tips on exactly like the number 1, 2, and 3 things you would do in that order, I would, and I know you know already.
Well, so. I'm smiling because these things transmit. Like when you say something, then it comes through.
Yeah.
The number 1 thing is to eat less, live more. Eat less, live more. Fasting and intermittent fasting has been the most important thing that I've done in my life. I don't mean health-wise. I mean as a peak performance, optimization, mental, emotional, spiritual tool. Going longer stretches in my day on liquids. I don't mean like dry fasting, but drinking 1 liter of water in the morning, then having your juice. And then maybe your herbal tonic, and then maybe it's your superfood protein smoothie or something. But going liquids and then having 1 solid meal in your day, and adapting. Everyone's going to have their own path to that, but that is a principle. Liquids first to flush out your body in the morning. That's number 1.
I want to just real briefly touch on that. And I love that Ronnie says that because I've practiced intermittent fasting for years, and on a day like today, when I've had a colonic and I had a little stress thrown my way, not every day will be perfect.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that I noticed a huge difference. There was a period of time in my life where I fasted more than I ate, a period of a few years. And I kind of transitioned to it the wrong way. So make sure you listen to your body. But I do notice when I go like a month straight with, maybe I'll do a juice around 1 o'clock after the gym, and I'll just have water, and then at 6 I'll have dinner. I notice my skin literally glows. The whites of my eyes are clear. I feel in a more peaceful mood. I'm more connected to about what others are going through than about myself. It's not all about me.
Yes.
The biggest sign, that you're eating too often or too much is that it's all about you. That is the biggest. It is.
You're literally in a consumer mode.
Well,
right? Because you're consuming, you're fine. That's really that makes. You know what? I'm making number 2. Okay. Number 2 is thinking less about ourselves. And I don't mean in an altruistic way. I don't mean in a deprivation way. I mean that all stress comes from us thinking too much about ourselves. And so I would tell you that it's to be less stressful, but it's like, how do I do that? Well, one of the ways I've found, and I think you just hit it, is that when we organize our lifestyle and we take ourselves out of our own bubble and place our attention on being of service and helpful to other people, and realize there's people in the world that have way harder challenges than we do, and most of our issues often are like first world problems. When we can stop putting the focus so much on ourselves and think, how can I be of service to somebody else, even if it's just smiling when it's hard to smile.
I love that. I love that.
That right there to me is so important.
Yeah, like I said, that when I know that I'm taking in too much is when I am not, calling my mom saying, how did your day go? Or being about others first. And you really, in our business, you have to always, of course, self-care. Are you okay? I'm sorry. Oh, I stepped on my dog. I'm sorry, Lewis. Okay, so we're going on to number 3. I think I might edit that out, or I may not. Lewis is a dog. I'm sorry. I would.
But animals are so amazing because that's another. Actually, it's perfect because humans hold on to resentment, where you just made a quick little mistake, and now the dog it reacts, but now it's right back in your lap. Because it instantly lets go of things. Yeah,
he was sleeping. I wouldn't want to get stepped on when I was sleeping. So what is number 3?
Number 3, getting your sleep cycle in check.
Okay.
Getting your sleep, and it's going to be different for everyone. There's different kind of biological guidelines. A lot of people say that you need to go to sleep between 10 and 6
to get the full benefits.
To get the full anabolic benefits.
What do you feel about that?
I feel like it's malleable, and I feel like it's going to be adjustable depending on somebody's environment, depending on their lifestyle, depending on their diet. When you eat less and you drink more, over time you will notice that you actually don't need to sleep as much as you did.
Okay, now perfect example. I haven't had much sleep this week. The longest amount of sleep I've had this week, I've had a few people staying in my home, and I've traveled out of the country, is 4 hours. I'm used to getting 7. 7 is good for me, or 6 even is good for me. 8 hours actually makes me feel tired.
Yes.
But I tend to fall asleep around 10:30. And, I get up at like 5, 6 a.m. And this week it's been off. I've noticed my mood has been horrible. I've noticed that I have circles around my eyes, that I look a little droopy in the lids. It's sleep. So sleep is imperative. I want to throw out 3 things that I would. So I actually like a good vegan adrenal glandular, and I'll post the link below. It's got turmeric. I find turmeric even, just reducing the inflammation in the body helps everything. I love how Ronnie said about the intermittent fasting. That is so true. When you're always thinking about what your next meal is going to be or when it's going to be, that's not living. And I've been there. We've all been there. Where the focus.
That's why I started doing this in the first place. Wasn't actually because of the physical benefits. And I could lay that out for people, but that's less interesting to me, as I wanted to gain mastery over my thought and emotional patterns.
Yeah, when the focus is so much about food, and anyone who gets into this lifestyle goes through that. So don't think you're alone. And it may take a year or 5 to get out of it, but we eventually do. The focus should be on living life and about serving others and self-love and really finding out your true path.
Yes.
It shouldn't be on the food. It's okay. It's okay if it is, because I went through that, where literally I was in my bubble with my food. I did not go out. I wouldn't let people eat around me.
Yeah,
That's
right.
sad. Did you ever?
I did. I remember. It was funny as you were speaking. I thought about, when you're on raw food for like a year, 2 years, you go through these fluctuations. You get to this place where you're just like, really hungry.
Yeah.
You're just really hungry, and you have like 3 salads a day and smoothies and stuff. And so I felt like the cleansing of the diet was actually identifying some kind of hunger in my soul. And so it's kind of interesting, right? Like if you walk the path and you keep going forward with it, things will harmonize, but it's kind of like you got to pay to play.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes me want to cry. I'm so glad that I wasn't the only one that literally had food focus for quite a few years.
I didn't even know, until I got into this, I didn't know how focused I would be on food.
I mean, was there someone close to you in your life, I'm just going to say, that you would ask the food questions to that didn't even have to do with it?
Yeah, there were people in my life in our industry that I started asking. Like David Wolf was one that when him and me became friends.
Steve Adler was
one of
mine.
Yeah, a lot of other people that I started asking them these personal questions because stuff would come up and I wouldn't, in all the craziness of the vegan raw food community on the internet, and I couldn't understand what that was about until I realized over time that I think a lot of that, the hysteria was actually about people not doing their own inner work.
Yeah,
and creating YouTube channels to banter and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I did not create my channel until I was literally like 5 years out of healing myself. I mean, and years of biofeedback, years of
You didn't just like do this for a year and you're excited.
No,
and you're like,
I mean let
me make my fruit, my low carb or high carb Nancy YouTube channel or something.
Right? And I mean, I think I repped Steve Adler's chocolate company back in Ohio just so I could call him up and ask him food questions. Sacred Chocolate. We better give Steve a plug.
Yes.
I literally would take repping jobs so I could ask the raw food owners, oh, I'm sorry, you guys, like,
this is
questions.
Funny.
But the answers were all within me, and I didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't recommend my first raw vegan recipe book a lot, because it's so much food combined, and so I only eat a fraction of the recipes in that book still. So when people ask me, should I get Juicing for Beauty? Should I get Rawlicious? I'm like, stick with Juicing for Beauty for now. Ronnie, thank you. We're going to follow up with that video. Thank you guys so much. Let's give your website one more time. My
personal website is www.ronnie, that's RONNIE, _Landis, LANDIS. And then I also have an online holistic nutrition certification program called the Holistic Health Mastery Program, which is holistichealthmastery.com.
Yay, we love that. And you guys know my website, thehealthyhaven.net, soon to be alkalized with AndreaCox.com. And my retreats are at alkalizewithandrea.com. Be well. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. I'm sorry about Lewis. It's real life. Okay, bye. Bye.
Aloha.